This episode, we're going to cover the top 5 SUVs that you can own on a budget and make cool. So there's a bonus to it. So if you got a family and you don't want to drive a minivan, this is the episode for you. We're going to cover a quick history of each of them and then dive into the modifications that you want to do to make them super cool family haulers. Don't have a family? That's fine. These are perfect for hauling dogs around too. And if you don't have a family and you don't have any dogs, you throw your friends in them. Don't have any friends? Building one of these cars probably gets you some. Welcome to Off Camber. I'm Jason Jackman and this is Off Camber. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, you can go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe down below. Feel free to leave any comments you want about stuff you might want to see on this channel. I'm willing to listen to it all, and I answer all the comments. So before we talk about these hot rods and how you make these SUVs, which are inane family haulers, into cool cars, we've got to talk about the origins of everything. So let's go back to the beginning, shall we? So since the dawn of time, people have had families and they have had the need to transport them from place to place because of soccer, karate, maybe gymnastics or something like that. In the Stone Age, they rode dinosaurs and woolly mammoths around. But they were fussy and they were pretty hard to keep in line. And then they would eat your food if you weren't careful, sometimes even your kids. That may have been a cartoon or maybe a movie or something I saw, but everything on TV is true, so don't worry about it. Here we go. As time went on, humans invented the wheel and fire. In which order, no one knows. Not even mathematicians, and those guys are smart. But it happened because people were tired of dinosaurs and woolly mammoths and all of the bullshit that went along with them. So they all prayed to their Stone Age gods, and God heard them, and he answered, and he said, you know what? You're going to need something to fuel these new machines. And so he sent an extinction level event that turned all of the dinosaurs and woolly mammoths into gasoline. Then I think there was cowboys or bandits and stuff like that. I don't really know. All I know is that most of the time your kids died of dysentery somewhere along the Oregon Trail. But let's skip past all that. Then one day someone said, you know, I'm really tired of poop in the streets from all these horses, just walking around pooping everywhere. Why don't we make fuel from those dinosaurs? We can crush them up into little bits and pieces and we can make them into liquid that'll make fire and do burnouts. Then we can race the horses and keep them in stalls and keep them off the streets, limit them to beer commercials and stuff so they stop pooping everywhere. And on that day, the internal combustion engine was invented by a guy named Nick. Not Santa Nick, it was another German named Nick. Trust me, I know. I've read all history. I'm actually an expert in this, as you can tell. So all of this inventing and dysentery and, grinding up dinosaurs went along, and eventually we invented the station wagon. And the station wagon was cool, but the kids were just in the back seat, just constantly throwing things out the window because for some reason no one could figure out how to face the seats forward. They faced the back window. So they caused a lot of car accidents, and deaths happened and everything, and they said, well, we need to do something different than this. So then they invented the vans. Well, vans are cool. But in the 60s, the hippies ruined them. They drove them to some music festival and they were all hanging out of the windows and stuff, and no one wanted to drive a van anymore, except for weird people that went to discos. Being that this is America, home of the 72-ounce medium drink and 5-gallon bucket of fries, we figured out that we needed something larger. No one wanted to mess with vans anymore because hippies had made them all smell real weird, I think like patchouli and leather. And if things need to be bigger, Americans are the people for you. We can always make stuff larger. We needed something to fit all those chicky nuggies and all the orange soda. So SUVs were invented. And at first SUVs were kind of goofy, but then Gen X came along, you're welcome, and figured out how to properly lower a vehicle. So then once you could lower cars proper ride height, things became cooler. Then all of a sudden you could have a Ford Granada that you made look good. So let's talk about these SUVs that we can make into really cool family haulers for not a lot of money, especially a lot less than you can buy some of these modern SUVs for, which are up in the $100,000 range now for a real nice one. So the first one on the list I want to talk about is the Dodge Ram Charger. This unit was built from 1974 to 1993. And I feel like it largely went pretty unnoticed. You have the earlier style tin grill vehicles, all the way out to the last of the square-bodied Dodge trucks of the early 1990s. After that, they kind of moved to their modern look. And then the Ram Charger was discontinued, at least in America. They continued to make them down to Mexico with the new body style, but for some reason in America, we didn't get them. They built this thing to kind of compete with the Blazer/Tahoe and the Bronco. And I'm not sure why this thing became such an orphan. Maybe it's Dodge's quality, or maybe they just all did what every Dodge does and rusted into oblivion. Who knows? They look really cool. They have a real neat style to them, especially the early tin grill stuff. I like to think about them running around as street truck guys with a nice set of wheels and a Hellcat living under the hood. They have cool interiors in them. They sell on all those major auction sites pretty frequently, and you can find a nice clean one for about $15,000. Some fun facts about them is that they were originally dubbed the Rhino by Dodge. They came with a fabric removable rear roof and an optional metal rear roof. Those were 74 only, and they were 4-wheel drive only, but in 75 they started making them in 2-wheel drive. And those were just begging to be lowered. Oh, in 1980 they introduced the second generation of them, and those ran all the way to 93 until they stopped making them in the United States. You can find those modern versions down in Mexico, and they're legal to import nowadays, in case you were wondering. So why don't you get out there and start modding these things and send me some pictures. Next up on the list is number 4. And that's the Ford Bronco. When I bring up the Bronco, I'm generally talking about the 2nd generation and the 5th generation. Those are the two that I like the most. Obviously, the 1st generation is iconic, and those are the ones that Ford is emulating with the new Bronco. And those are cool, and they're great, and all that stuff, but it's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that we could shove our family into, have some cool guy vibes with it, and do burnouts. So you don't really see a lot of these 2nd gen or even 5th gen Broncos out there. The 5th gen have their following. I don't know, maybe people are obsessed with O.J. Simpson. But the 2nd and 5th gen, you don't see a lot of them, and those are by far the coolest of the two. You know, just like every other car in the world, I love thinking about them lowered. But these ones in particular, I like thinking about putting a Coyote engine into them and maybe throwing a supercharger on it and lowering it and putting a nice set of wheels on it and having a killer street truck. People just don't do that enough, and these SUVs are really just ripe for the taking on these things. They have some really, really cool lines to them, and unlike Chevy, Ford never gave up the removable top, which is cool because you can make it into like this beach truck type thing, which would be fun in the summer. Pull the top off the thing, slammed, all the smoke would get inside, and you can cover your passengers with rubber. So they ran this thing, and there's 5 generations of them total. All of them look better lowered. It doesn't matter which one you like. These units got replaced with the Expedition. And while I've always wanted to lower one of those two, they're kind of beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. And just for the sake of adding some usable facts here, 66 through 77 were the 1st gen. 2nd gen ran from 78 to 79. 3rd gen was 80 to 86. 4th gen was 87 to 91. And then the final 5th gen ran from 1992 to 96. And then they were just abruptly discontinued. I'm not sure why. All right, so number three on the list. Number 3 on the list, we have the Jeep Wagoneer. Now this is a completely untapped market. I don't know that I've ever seen a lowered one. I know that if you watch some other channels out there, or if you paid attention to Motor Trend TV when that existed before Discovery killed it, is that David Freiberger has one. He spent a long time looking for one. He calls it the Dragoneer, which is a really cool name. But I don't know if he's going to lower it and make it into a street truck so much as he's going to make it into a sleeper drag race car. I haven't even seen him do anything with it recently, so maybe I missed it, but I just haven't seen it. But one of these things could be really cool slammed. Here's a Photoshop I did. Now, I'm obviously not the greatest Photoshopper, as you've seen from my Bronco Photoshops, but hey, I'm not bad, I guess. I mean, could be worse. I could use Microsoft Paint. But either way, with one of these things, you can't go wrong with it. You could do a big block Chevy. There's plenty of room in the engine bay for it. You could do an LS motor with a couple of twins on it, big turbo, something. I don't know. This could be a really cool driver, and they're really kind of neat inside. They have really kind of neat interiors. I kind of prefer, there's like a mid-range one that had the round gauges on the interior, but still a little bit more of the modern looks. I just like the square headlight ones because of the wood trim mostly. But then the later model ones had square gauges in them, and I'm sure you could buy stuff from Dakota Digital or something like that to fit in there that's good. But the interior is real cool in them. And with the wood paneling, they'd make a really killer dad hot rod. So these things came into existence in 1963, and they ran all the way to 1991 with very few changes in them. Obviously, they evolved over the years, but by and large, you're never going to accidentally mistake this for another vehicle. They're definitely Wagoneers all the way through. But there's been some real nice ones on Bring a Trailer that have gone in the teens. In modern day post-COVID times too. This isn't just me waxing poetic about the times before. This is actual modern day. If you had about a $25,000 budget, I think you can make a cool car. I think they're solid axle front ends. I'm not real sure. I haven't looked into them too much. But if they're anything like the rest of the Jeeps, they're solid axle fronts. I think you'd have to modify some stuff or figure out some ways to make them real low in the front. You could probably do it with a leaf kit. I'd personally love to see one of these things done up as a cruiser with some horsepower behind it. They could be super cool. Maybe get your welder out and a cutter and do fully independent front suspension and coilovers and a 4-link in the rear and drag race the thing. It would be hilarious to see, and then when you throw your family and all the dogs in the back and drive to the next drag race, it'd be cool. So the next one on the list is going to be a little bit of a controversial one. So many people love and adore this thing the way they sit, and there's a whole community about off-roading them that people are going to probably start putting gypsy curses on me for this one. It's fine, but you're going to have to hear me out because it is my show and I get to do what I want here. And I don't think I've ever actually seen this before. Much like the Jeep Wagoneer, it seems like it's an untouched, untapped car for this type of thing. So I'm going to give you a couple of hints. See if you can guess it. Way back in the day, long before the internets were around, there was a war. It was called the Korean War. Some of you have already gotten it by this point. I can feel the gypsy curses starting already, so I know you know. Well, it was 1951. The United States military needed a vehicle to get around easily on the battlefield with. They tasked Toyota to make them some Willy spec vehicles because it was too expensive to bring them all over. And what happened from that point is the BJ was born. No, not that BJ. That was born much earlier. The BJ Toyota. Everyone liked these things so much that they went into full production 2 years after this. And they called it the Land Cruiser because, I don't know, they ripped off Land Rover. I'm pretty sure they ripped off Land Rover, or they wanted to compete with them, or have you confuse the names, or say, look, here's a bargain spec Land Rover. The funny thing at that time is they didn't know. Or maybe they did, because I think Lucas Electrical Systems were never good. The Land Rover was never reliable. So that's the irony of the whole situation, is these Land Cruisers are known for basically running forever. So blah, 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 blah. A bunch of time went by and Toyota created a legend, all right? You want to see the history on it, there's plenty of other channels out there that'll give it to you. And I like the early ones as much as anybody, but my favorite is probably the 80 series. They just, again, they got that big full-size vibe to them. They're really kind of modern, but yet kind of got that 80s, 90s feel to them. They're just real low-key. I think one of these would look insanely good lowered. It's impossible to find one on the internet lowered. I've looked. So I had to create Photoshops. Now, I'm not very good at Photoshopping, so I couldn't do anything with the front air dam and make it look cool, but if you drop the front air dam down a little bit below the bumper, these things would look pretty killer on the street. Here's a picture of it. Now, these things were notoriously underpowered, but that's nothing that can't be fixed. The off-road community swaps LSs into these things all the time, so there's kits out there for them. If you wanted to stay brand specific, you could very easily swap a 2JZ or is it a 1UZ? I don't know. They have a V8 also. It sounds really killer. Toyota has a very, very good sounding V8. I'm not sure what the code of it is, but that's besides the point. You could put one of those in here. So imagine one of these things with a good set of wheels on it, a nice engine, and a little cam loping in the background. I don't know. Whatever. Somebody should do this. Give me some pics. And the number one entry, still super affordable, is the OBS Blazer, Suburban, or Tahoe. They were called the Blazer and the Tahoe, depending. My particular favorite is the early OBS Blazers because they were just super cool looking. I like the square grille, and I really like the dashboards and the seats in those ones. But if I were going to buy one as a driver, I'd probably buy 97 to 99. 95 and 96 got this really goofy dashboard. And by far and away, I think the two-door is my favorite. And it is absolute pinnacle of GM trucks. It's a little bit shorter than a single cab short bed pickup truck, but has a lot of utility to it as well. Sure, the TBI engine was hot garbage. The Vortec a little bit less because the heads flowed better. But these SUVs will fit just about any engine into them. They have a big enough engine bay to get a big block Chevy into because, you know, the 3500 dualies had big blocks in them, which means that you can go through a 502 crate engine or 572 or one of those crazy ones, right? If you want to go a little bit simpler route, the LSs basically bolt into the things. The early model GMT 800s will basically swap all of the stuff over into them. So they're pretty easy to build. There's even guys out there that are building LT4 with 10 speeds in these things. If you want to do it, there's probably instructions on the internet and how to do it. This platform has been used extensively. It's, my opinion, probably the internet's favorite truck. It's definitely mine. And they're absolutely beautiful. They're the pinnacle of GM design. They're just fantastic looking vehicles. But if you're looking for a low cost entry and the most cool points possible, you're looking at an OBS Suburban, Blazer, or Tahoe. So today we covered top 5 SUVs that you can make into really cool cars for not a whole lot of money. If you like this type of stuff, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We're going to do more of this stuff. We're also got some projects on the horizon. We've got a new one coming up. And remember, everything's cooler when it's more low. If you have any ideas for what kind of cars we should talk about next, leave a couple of comments and we'll talk about them. Maybe do an episode on it. In any case, hope you enjoyed your time here. I'm glad that you came to watch. And we'll see you next time on Off Camera.